Captain Yuna stood at the viewport of her cargo ship, watching the massive station grow larger against the stars. Valanis 9 was beautiful in its own way, a spinning wheel of metal and glass that caught the light from the twin suns. Her ship, the Endless Horizon, had been traveling for 3 weeks, and she was ready for a hot meal and a soft bed. "Docking clearance approved, Captain," Taeyang called from the engine room through the comm system. "Their automated systems are guiding us in." Yuna smiled. Taeyang had been her chief engineer for 5 years now, and he knew the ship better than anyone. "Good work. Make sure everything is locked down before we dock." The Endless Horizon slid smoothly into its berth. Through the windows, Yuna could see other ships from across the galaxy. There were the sleek silver vessels of the Velthari, the organic-looking pods that the insectoid species preferred, and dozens of others. Valanis 9 was a trade station, a place where different species came together to exchange goods and stories. Yuna walked down the ramp and into the station proper. The air was warm and smelled faintly of exotic spices. Around her, aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Most of them gave her a wide berth. Humans made many species nervous, though they tried to hide it. "Captain Yuna!" a familiar voice called out. Ambassador Hana approached with a smile. She wore the simple gray uniform of the diplomatic corps. "I heard your ship was coming in. How was the journey?" "Long and boring, just the way I like it," Yuna replied. They walked together toward the station's central hub. "How are things here?" Hana's smile faded slightly. "Quiet. Too quiet, actually. There have been reports from the Outer Rim, ships going missing, colonies losing contact." Before Yuna could respond, alarms began to blare throughout the station. The lights shifted to a yellow warning state. Aliens around them froze, their various eyes wide with confusion. Most species in this part of the galaxy had never heard an emergency alarm before. Velthar, the station administrator, appeared on every screen. His species looked like tall, slender deer with 4 arms and soft, fuzzy skin. His voice was shaking. "Please remain calm. Our long-range sensors have detected unknown vessels approaching our position. We are attempting to make contact." Yuna and Hana exchanged a look. They both started running toward the station's command center. Other beings moved slowly, uncertain. But the 2 humans pushed through with purpose. The command center was chaos. Velthar stood in the middle, his 4 arms gesturing frantically at different displays. Kree, an insectoid trader, was manipulating the sensor controls with his many limbs. "What do we have?" Yuna asked, moving to look at the main display. Kree's translator device crackled. 73 ships. Unknown configuration. They are not responding to any hails." His multifaceted eyes reflected the screen's light. "I have seen these signatures before in reports from the outer colonies, before they went dark." "The Dravik swarm," Hana whispered. Her face had gone pale. Velthar turned to her. "What are the Draviks?" "Conquerors," Hana said quietly. "They sweep through systems, taking resources and enslaving populations. They've been moving through the Outer Rim for months, but surely they will talk with us." Velthar's voice was hopeful. "All disputes can be resolved through dialogue. That is the way of civilized beings." Yuna felt a cold weight in her stomach. She had seen the reports that the diplomatic corps kept quiet. The Draviks didn't negotiate, they consumed. But she didn't want to terrify Velthar. "How long until they arrive?" she asked instead. 18 hours, Kree responded. "They are moving at combat speed." "We must send a distress signal," Velthar decided. "To all nearby systems. Someone will help us." Hana stepped forward. "Administrator, with respect, most nearby systems have no military, no weapons, no defense forces." Velthar looked confused. Why would they need such things? The question hung in the air. Most species in the galaxy had evolved on peaceful worlds. They had left war behind thousands of years ago. The idea of organized violence was alien to them, something from their primitive past. "Send the distress signal anyway," Una said. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Someone might come." Velthar nodded and began working on the transmission. His long fingers moved across the controls. "This is Valanis 9 to all receiving stations. We are under threat from hostile forces. We have no defenses. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help." The message repeated, sent out into the void of space in 100 different languages and formats. Una watched it go, hoping against hope that someone would answer. Taiyang arrived at the command center, slightly out of breath. "Captain, I've been checking our cargo. We have industrial equipment, mining lasers, and construction drones. It's not much, but maybe we can rig something." "Do it," Una ordered. "Anything that can be weaponized, make it happen." Velthar's ears flattened against his head. "Weaponized? Captain, surely you don't mean to engage in violence." "I mean to survive," Una said firmly. "And if that means fighting, then yes." Around the command center, other aliens were murmuring in their various languages. The concept of fighting back seemed to disturb them deeply. Una realized that to them, violence was something incomprehensible, a nightmare from their ancient past. "The nearest human outpost is 3 days away," Hana said, checking her datapad. "The Fifth Fleet is stationed at New Busan Colony." "They won't get here in time," Kree observed. "The Draviks will be here in 18 hours. "Send the message anyway," Una insisted. "Tell them what's happening. Tell them we're human citizens in danger." Hana nodded and began encoding a priority message to the Terran Defense Fleet. Her fingers moved quickly across the console. Una knew what she was doing, using every emergency code and priority flag available. As the hours passed, Taiyang worked with a small team to modify equipment. The aliens watched in fascination and horror as he turned peaceful tools into weapons. Mining lasers were recalibrated for higher power. Construction drones were reprogrammed with aggressive patterns. It wasn't much, but it was something. Una stood at the viewport watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the Draviks were coming. And somewhere else, she hoped, humans were preparing to answer the call. "Captain," Hana said softly, coming to stand beside her. "Do you think they'll come?" "The fleet?" Una considered. "If they receive the message, they'll come. That's what we do." "The others don't understand," Hana observed. "They look at us like we're monsters when we talk about fighting." "Maybe we are monsters," Una said. "But sometimes, monsters are exactly what you need." On the screens behind them, the countdown continued. 16 hours until the Draviks arrived, and 3 days until help could possibly reach them. If help was coming at all. The priority message arrived at New Busan Colony in the middle of the night cycle. The communications officer nearly dropped his coffee when he saw the emergency codes flashing across his screen. He hit the alarm button without hesitation. Admiral Minho was in the command center within 5 minutes, his uniform still being fastened as he walked. He was a veteran of 30 years with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Report," he ordered. "Distress call from Valanis 9, sir," the officer said. "Mixed alien population under attack by the Dravik swarm. 2 human citizens confirmed on station. Ambassador Hana and Captain Una of the merchant vessel Endless Horizon." Minho's jaw tightened. "How many Draviks?" "Over 70 ships, sir. The station has no defenses." "Sound general quarters," Minho commanded. "I want the entire Fifth Fleet ready to move in 30 minutes, and get me Major Hyun." The command center erupted into controlled chaos. Officers rushed to their stations. Across the naval base, ships began powering up their engines. Marines grabbed their gear and ran to their assigned vessels. Major Hyun arrived quickly, his combat armor already in place. He was younger than the Admiral, with a scarred face that told stories of past battles. "Sir, my Marines are ready. What's the mission?" "Rescue and destroy," Minho said simply. He pulled up the tactical display showing Valanus 9's location. "We have civilians trapped on a station with no defenses. The Draviks are closing in." "Rules of engagement?" Hyun asked. "There are no rules when it comes to the Draviks," Minho replied coldly. "They chose violence. We'll give them more than they can handle." Dr. Sora entered the command center carrying her datapad. She was a xenobiologist, responsible for understanding alien species and cultures. "Admiral, I've pulled up everything we have on Valanus 9. The station population is entirely peaceful species. Velthari, Kestari, several others. None of them have any concept of modern warfare." "They're about to get an education," Hyun muttered. Sora continued. "Sir, we need to be careful. These species find humans frightening even in peacetime. If they see us in full combat mode—" "Then they'll be frightened," Minho interrupted. "But they'll be alive. I'll take fear over death any day." Pilot Doyen arrived with his squadron leaders. He was the best fighter pilot in the fleet, known for his calm demeanor and deadly precision. "Admiral, the Falcon Squadron is ready. What's our target?" Minho pointed to the display. "The Dravik swarm. We'll be outnumbered, but we have better technology and better training. Your job is to keep them away from the station until we can position the fleet." "Understood, sir," Doyen said with a slight smile. "We'll make them regret leaving their home system." As the fleet prepared to launch, Minho gathered his senior officers for a final briefing. The holographic display showed the route to Valanus 9 and the estimated Dravik's positions. "Listen carefully," Minho began. "Most species in the galaxy think we're monsters. They don't understand why Earth maintains a military. They don't understand why we train for war. They grew up on safe worlds where the biggest predator was something they could outrun." He paused, looking at each officer in turn. "Earth made us different. We evolved alongside creatures that hunted us. We survived plagues that killed millions. We endured ice ages and volcanic winters. We learned to fight because if we didn't, we died." Major Hyun nodded. "And now they need those skills." "Exactly," Minho said. "The Draviks have been conquering peaceful systems for months. No one could stop them because no one remembered how to fight. But we remember. We've never forgotten." Dr. Sora spoke up. "The psychological impact on the aliens will be significant. They'll see us doing things they thought were impossible, things they thought were evil." "Let them judge us after we save their lives," Minho said firmly. "We didn't ask to be the galaxy's warriors, but if that's what we need to be, then that's what we'll be." The fleet launched exactly 30 minutes after the alarm sounded. 12 warships and 4,000 Marines, all moving with a single purpose. The ships pushed their engines beyond normal limits, racing through space at dangerous speeds. On the flagship, Minho watched the countdown timer. 3 days to reach Valanus 9. The Draviks would arrive much sooner. He could only hope that Yuna and Hana could hold out until help arrived. "Sir," the communications officer called, "we're receiving an update from the station. Engineer Tai Yang has managed to weaponize some of their industrial equipment. He's setting up defensive positions." A small smile crossed Minho's face. "Of course he has. Humans always find a way." Major Hyun was briefing his Marines in the hangar bay. 4,000 men and women in combat armor, carrying weapons that would seem like magic to most alien species. They listened intently as he spoke. "The enemy thinks they're attacking helpless prey," Hyun told them. "They think this will be easy. They're wrong. Because humans don't abandon our own. When someone calls for help, we answer. Always." The Marines cheered, their voices echoing through the metal corridors. Dr. Sora was in her lab, reviewing data on the Draviks. They were a parasitic species, evolved to conquer and consume. They had no concept of mercy or negotiation. To them, the galaxy was simply resources waiting to be taken. She recorded her observations for the official record. The Dravix swarm operates on pure predatory instinct. They've likely never encountered organized resistance. Most species in the galaxy surrendered immediately when faced with violence. But humans are different. We don't surrender easily. We fight back. Pilot Doyen sat in his fighter, running through pre-flight checks. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. He thought about the civilians on Valanis 9, watching the approaching doom. He thought about Yuna and Hana, two humans surrounded by aliens who had never known war. "They must be terrified," his wingman said over the comm. "Maybe," Doyen replied. "But they're human. They'll hold. They know we're coming." The fleet raced through space, leaving a trail of energy signatures behind them. Inside each ship, men and women prepared for battle. They checked their weapons, reviewed their tactics, and thought about the mission ahead. Minho stood alone in his ready room, looking at a picture on his desk. It showed Earth from orbit, the blue and green world that had shaped humanity into what they were. A beautiful, deadly planet that had taught its children to survive at any cost. "We're coming," he said quietly to the stars. "Hold on. We're coming." The countdown continued. 2 days and 20 hours until the fleet arrived. But the Dravix would be at Valanis 9 in just 16 hours. On the station, Yuna watched the same countdown on her own display. She knew the math. She knew the humans wouldn't arrive in time to prevent the attack. But she also knew they would arrive. And when they did, the Dravix would learn why Earth was classified as a death world. The galaxy was about to remember that predators don't always win. Sometimes the apex predator is the one you didn't see coming. The Dravix arrived exactly on schedule. Their ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in a perfect formation, surrounding Valanis 9 like predators circling wounded prey. Each vessel was dark and angular, covered in weapons and armor plates. In the command center, Velthar watched the displays with all 4 of his hands trembling. "They're not responding to our hails. They're not even acknowledging us." "They don't negotiate," Yuna said grimly. She had armed herself with a plasma cutter from the cargo hold. It wasn't a real weapon, but it would have to do. "Everyone needs to get to the safe zones now." Around the station, aliens were panicking. Most of them had never experienced danger before. They ran in circles, making frightened sounds in dozens of different languages. Their peaceful lives had not prepared them for this moment. Ji-Hun, Yuna's second in command, was organizing the evacuation. He had served in the Terran Marines before joining her crew, and his training showed. "Move quickly, but don't run," he called out in a calm voice. "Follow the lighted paths to the central hub." The first Dravix boarding craft hit the station's outer docks with a metallic crash. The creatures that emerged were nightmares made real, twisted combinations of flesh and metal, with too many limbs and weapons grafted directly to their bodies. Taiyang watched them from his hidden position behind a stack of cargo containers. He had spent the last 18 hours turning the docking bay into a trap. Mining lasers hidden in the ceiling, construction drones reprogrammed for combat, and every industrial tool he could weaponize. He pressed the activation switch. The mining lasers fired in synchronized bursts, cutting through the first wave of Dravix. The construction drones swooped down from above, their cutting tools finding soft targets. For a moment, the attack stalled. But there were too many of them. More boarding craft arrived, disgorging dozens of Dravix troops. They adapted quickly, using their own bodies as shields to protect others behind them. "Fall back to the second position," Taiyang ordered over his comm unit. He ran through the corridors, setting off explosive charges behind him. The blasts collapsed parts of the station, creating barriers between the Dravix and the civilian refugees. In the central hub, Yuna had organized a defensive perimeter. She had about 20 people who were willing to fight, mostly humans and a few brave aliens from warrior species. It wasn't much, but it was something. Ambassador Hana appeared beside her, carrying a compact firearm that had been hidden in her diplomatic quarters. Yuna raised an eyebrow. "I thought diplomats were supposed to be unarmed." "I'm a diplomat from Earth," Hana replied with a tight smile. "We prepare for everything." The peaceful aliens watched them with wide, terrified eyes. To species that had never known violence, the sight of humans calmly preparing for battle was almost as frightening as the Draviks themselves. Kree scuttled over to them, his insectoid body moving with nervous energy. "I do not understand. Why do you fight? Surely it would be safer to hide." "Hiding doesn't work against predators," Yuna explained. "You have to show them you're dangerous. Make them think twice about attacking." "But you will die," Kree said simply. "Maybe," Yuna admitted. "But we'll take some of them with us, and we'll buy time for everyone else to escape." The first Draviks reached the central hub. They came through the corridors in a wave of claws and weapons. Yuna's defenders opened fire. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Several Draviks fell, but more kept coming. Ji-hoon fought with brutal efficiency, his military training evident in every movement. He used his rifle like an extension of his body, firing precise shots while moving constantly. "They're trying to flank us," he called out. "Hana, cover the left corridor." Hana moved into position, her diplomatic training forgotten in favor of survival instinct. She fired carefully, conserving ammunition. Each shot counted. Taiyang arrived at the central hub, bringing with him a group of refugees he had rescued from the outer sections. "We're losing ground," he reported. "They're flooding in through multiple breach points." Velthar was trying to help the wounded, though his hands shook with every motion. He had never seen blood before today. The concept of beings deliberately hurting each other was breaking something inside him. "Why?" he whispered to himself. "Why would anyone choose violence?" One of the Draviks broke through the defensive line, heading straight for a group of alien children. Without thinking, Velthar stepped in front of them. The Draviks raised its weapon, and Velthar closed his eyes, waiting for death. The shot never came. Yuna appeared from the side, tackling the Draviks to the ground. They struggled briefly before she managed to disable it with her plasma cutter. She stood up, breathing hard. "Are you okay?" she asked Velthar. The station administrator stared at her. "You killed it. You ended its life." "It was about to kill you," Yuna said. "And those children behind you. But still, to take a life." Velthar couldn't finish the sentence. Yuna's expression softened slightly. "I know it's hard for you to understand, but sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to stop the guilty. Permanently." The battle continued through the day. The humans and their few allies held the central hub, but they were being pushed back slowly. The Draviks seemed endless, wave after wave of attackers that didn't care about casualties. Ji-hoon was wounded, a deep cut across his shoulder. Nari, a combat medic who had arrived with a supply ship just before the attack, worked quickly to stop the bleeding. She had treated dozens of wounded already, moving between patients with practiced efficiency. "We can't hold much longer," Ji-hoon said through gritted teeth. "We need help." "It's coming," Yuna assured him. She checked her comm unit. The Terran fleet was still hours away. Too many hours. Taiyang appeared again, this time with a desperate plan. "I can overload the station's reactor. Create a controlled explosion in the outer sections. It'll destroy most of the Dravik's forces, but it'll also damage the station severely." "Do it," Yuna decided. "Better a damaged station than a conquered one." Taiyang ran back toward the engineering section. Behind him, the humans continued their desperate defense. They fought with everything they had, weapons, tools, even their bare hands when necessary. The peaceful aliens watched in a mixture of horror and awe. They were seeing humans in their element, doing what Earth had trained them to do for thousands of years, survive at any cost. Velthar approached Hana during a brief lull in the fighting. "Your people," he said quietly, "you are all like this? Ready to fight and die?" "Most of us," Hana replied. "Earth taught us that nothing is guaranteed. You have to fight for survival every single day." "It is a terrible way to live," Velthar observed. "Maybe," Hana agreed, "but it's also what makes us strong enough to protect those who can't protect themselves." The explosion came suddenly. Taiyang had succeeded in overloading the reactor in the outer sections. The blast tore through the Dravik's positions, destroying hundreds of them in an instant. The station shook violently, and alarms blared throughout the remaining sections. For a moment, there was silence. Then Yuna's comm unit crackled to life. It was Suman, a communications officer on one of the fleeing cargo ships. "Captain Yuna, we're detecting new ships entering the system. Lots of them. Transmitting Terran identification codes." Yuna felt relief wash over her. "The fleet is here." Around the central hub, the exhausted defenders allowed themselves a moment of hope. They had held. Against impossible odds, they had held long enough. Admiral Minho's voice came through on the general broadcast channel, clear and commanding. "This is the Terran Fifth Fleet to all friendly forces on Valanis 9. Hold your positions. Help has arrived." The Terran Fifth Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 12 warships appeared around Valanis 9 like avenging angels, their weapons already charging. The Dravik's swarm had been focused on the station, and the sudden arrival caught them completely off guard. Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The Dravik's ships were scrambling, trying to form a defensive line. They were too slow. "All ships, weapons free," Minho ordered. "Target their command vessels first. Let's cut the head off this snake." The fleet opened fire. Beams of concentrated energy lanced across the darkness, striking Dravik's ships with devastating precision. Explosions bloomed in the void as shields failed and hulls ruptured. The peaceful aliens on the station watched through viewports, unable to look away from the terrible beauty of human warfare. The Dravik's tried to return fire, but their weapons were designed for attacking defenseless targets. Against military-grade shields and armor, their shots barely made an impact. They had spent months conquering peaceful species, and they had forgotten what real combat looked like. "Sir, the Dravik's are attempting to withdraw," reported the tactical officer. Minho's expression didn't change. "Negative. Set up a perimeter. Nothing gets out." "Sir?" The officer looked uncertain. "They came here to hurt civilians," Minho said coldly. "They attacked beings who couldn't fight back. There will be consequences for that choice." He opened a broadcast channel to the Dravik's fleet. When he spoke, his voice was calm and absolutely certain. "This is Admiral Minho of the Terran Defense Fleet. You attacked civilians under our protection. You showed them no mercy. We will show you the same courtesy." On the station, Velthar listened to those words with growing horror. "He means to destroy them all. Every ship." "They would have done the same to us," Yuna pointed out. "They were killing us. They were going to enslave everyone on this station. But surely now that your fleet has arrived, they should be allowed to surrender." Velthar's voice was pleading. Hana shook her head slowly. "The Dravik's set the rules of engagement when they attacked. Admiral Minho is just following their example." Pilot Doyun led his fighter squadron through the chaos of battle. His craft was small and fast, darting between the massive capital ships like a bird among giants. He targeted the Dravik's boarding craft that were still attached to the station. "Falcon Squadron, focus fire on those leeches," he ordered. "Let's clear the station." The fighters swooped in, their weapons precise and deadly. one by one. The Dravik's boarding craft were destroyed, exploding in bursts of flame that quickly died in the vacuum of space. Inside the station, the remaining Dravik's ground forces realized they were trapped. Major Hyun's Marines were already launching from the fleet's assault carriers. 4,000 armored soldiers in drop pods, heading directly for the station. Hyun stood in his pod, checking his rifle one final time. "Listen up," he told his Marines over the comm. "There are civilians in there. Friendly forces fighting alongside them. Watch your targets. Confirm before you fire. But if it's a Dravix, put it down hard." The pods hit the station like meteor strikes, breaching the hull in controlled entries. Marines poured out, moving with practiced precision through the corridors. They found the remaining Dravix forces and engaged them immediately. The battle inside the station was brutal but quick. The Dravix had been fighting exhausted civilians with improvised weapons. Against trained Marines in full combat armor, they stood no chance. Within an hour, the station was secure. Nari moved through the corridors with the Marine medical teams. They treated wounded civilians and Marines alike, working with efficient compassion. She found Ji-hoon leaning against a wall, still bleeding from his shoulder wound. "You're supposed to stay down when you're injured," she scolded him gently, checking his bandages. "Couldn't let my captain fight alone?" Ji-hoon replied with a weak smile. Outside the station, the space battle was reaching its conclusion. The Dravik's command ship tried one last, desperate maneuver, attempting to ram the human flagship. Minho watched it come without flinching. "Point defense! Take it out!" he ordered. Dozens of smaller weapons fired simultaneously, tearing the Dravik's ship apart before it could close the distance. Debris scattered across space, glittering in the light from the twin suns. "Sir, last Dravik's vessel has been destroyed," the tactical officer reported. "All hostile forces eliminated." Minho nodded slowly. "Casualties?" "3 wounded, none serious. The Dravik's never even touched our shields." It was a complete victory. 73 Dravik's ships destroyed in less than 3 hours. The peaceful species watching from the station couldn't believe what they had seen. The humans had made it look easy. Dr. Sora was already on the station, moving through the crowds of refugees with her scanning equipment. She documented everything: the injuries, the trauma, the destruction. Her job was to understand how this would affect galactic society. She found Velthar sitting alone in a corner, staring at his hands. All 4 of them were shaking. "Are you injured?" she asked gently. "Not physically," Velthar replied. "But I saw things today. Things I never imagined possible. Your Captain Yuna killed to protect my people. She ended lives without hesitation. And you're alive because she did," Sora pointed out, "as are hundreds of others." "I know," Velthar said quietly, "but it doesn't make it easier to accept. Your species is so comfortable with violence. It's natural to you." Sora sat down beside him. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Do you know what that means?" Velthar shook his head. "It means our planet tried to kill us every single day," Sora explained. "Predators hunted us. Diseases killed millions. The weather itself was deadly. We learned to fight or we died. And we learned very, very well." "It must have been terrible," Velthar whispered. "It made us strong," Sora said. "Strong enough to protect those who can't protect themselves." Admiral Minho boarded the station personally, accompanied by Major Hyun. They met with Yuna and Hana in the damaged command center. Minho saluted them formally. "Captain Ambassador, excellent work holding the station. Your actions saved thousands of lives." Yuna looked exhausted but satisfied. "Thank you for coming, Admiral. We weren't sure anyone would make it in time." "We pushed our engines beyond safety limits to get here," Minho admitted. "When humans are in danger, we move heaven and earth to help them, and anyone else who needs it." Velthar approached them nervously. "Admiral, I must ask. The The Dravix ships you destroyed. Did any survive? No, Minho said simply. They came here to kill. We removed that threat permanently. But what about mercy? What about giving them a chance to change? Minho's expression was hard. They had their chance. They chose violence against the innocent. We simply responded in kind. Around them, aliens were gathering. They looked at the humans with new eyes, fear mixed with respect, horror mixed with gratitude. The humans had saved them, but the methods had been terrifying to witness. Major Hyun's Marines were helping with repairs and medical treatment. They moved through the station with care, trying not to frighten the civilians. But their armor and weapons were constant reminders of what they were capable of. Pilot Doyeon brought his squadron back to the fleet, reporting 0 losses and complete success. His pilots were celebrating, but he felt strangely quiet. He had destroyed dozens of ships today, ending hundreds of lives. It was necessary, but it still weighed on him. Back on the flagship, Communications Officer Suman was reviewing data from the Dravix ships before they were destroyed. What she found made her blood run cold. "Admiral," she reported urgently, "the Dravix database shows they've conquered 17 systems in the past 6 months. Peaceful colonies, all of them. They enslaved the populations and stripped the planets of resources." Minho's jaw tightened. 17 systems. Millions of people suffering under Dravix rule. Major Hyun stepped forward. "Sir, request permission to expand our mission. We can't just leave them there." "Agreed," Minho said. "We're going to liberate every single one of those systems. The Dravix thought they could prey on the weak. Time to show them what happens when you wake up the strong." The decision was made. The Fifth Fleet would not return home. Instead, they would begin a campaign to free every system the Dravix had conquered. It would take months, maybe longer, but it was necessary. On Valanis 9, the aliens were beginning to process what had happened. They had been saved by the very beings they had always feared. The humans, with their weapons and violence and terrible strength, had proven to be their greatest protectors. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. 3 weeks after the battle, Valanis 9 was still being repaired. The outer sections had been destroyed when Taeyong overloaded the reactor, and the inner sections bore scars from the fighting. But the station was alive, and that was what mattered. Ambassador Hana stood before the Galactic Council, transmitted across light years through holographic technology. The council chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, all of them watching her with mixed emotions. "You want an explanation," Hana began. "You want to know why humanity maintains a military, why we train our people for war, why we have weapons that can destroy entire fleets." The council members murmured among themselves. The Velthari representative, a distant cousin of Velthar, spoke up. "Your species frightens us, Ambassador. You speak of violence as casually as we speak of trade. You prepare for conflict constantly. It is disturbing." "I understand," Hana said calmly. "But let me tell you about Earth. Let me tell you about our home." She activated a holographic display showing Earth from space. The blue and green planet rotated slowly, beautiful and deceptively peaceful. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world," Hana continued. "The highest danger rating in the galactic classification system. Our planet has 6 major climate zones, all of them deadly in different ways. We have storms that can level cities, earthquakes that reshape continents, volcanic eruptions that darken the sky for years." More images appeared. Hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, all the natural disasters that Earth endured regularly. "But that's just the weather," Hana said. "Earth is also home to thousands of predator species, creatures with claws and fangs and venom. Our ancestors were hunted every single day. They learned to hunt back or they died." The council watched in silence as the display showed Earth's predators, Lions, tigers, bears, sharks, snakes. Even the smaller creatures were dangerous in their own ways. And then there were the diseases, Hana continued. Plagues that killed millions. Bacteria and viruses that evolved as fast as we did. Our immune systems are weapons in themselves because they had to be. A council member from a peaceful herbivore species spoke up. This sounds like a nightmare world. Why would anyone live there? Because it's home, Hana said simply. And because surviving Earth made us strong. Strong enough to leave our world, strong enough to travel the stars, and strong enough to protect others when they need it. On Valanis 9, Admiral Minho was meeting with Velthar in the repaired command center. Major Hyun stood nearby, his presence a reminder of military strength. We've investigated the Draviks thoroughly, Minho explained. They conquered 17 systems before we stopped them. Peaceful colonies, all of them. Species with no concept of warfare. Velthar's ears drooped. 17 systems, so many people suffering, and no one could stop them. No one knew how. Minho corrected. Most species in the galaxy abandoned military force thousands of years ago. You forgot that predators exist. And you never forgot, Velthar observed quietly. We couldn't afford to, Minho said. Earth never let us forget. Velthar was quiet for a moment, then asked the question that had been troubling him. Will you leave now? Return to your own space? Minho shook his head. We're going to liberate those 17 systems. Every single person enslaved by the Draviks will be freed. It's going to take months, but it's necessary. Why? Velthar asked. They are not your people. You owe them nothing. They're people, Minho replied. That's enough. Dr. Sora was compiling her report on the psychological impact of the battle. She interviewed hundreds of aliens who had witnessed human combat. Their responses were remarkably similar. Fear mixed with gratitude, horror mixed with respect. One Kesatari merchant told her, I watched the human called Jihun fight off 5 Dravik soldiers alone. He moved like nothing I had ever seen. Precise, efficient, deadly. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. A Velthari child said, Captain Yuna saved my parent. She destroyed the bad thing that was going to hurt us. I was scared of her at first, but then she smiled at me. She said everything would be okay, and it was. Sora included all of it in her report. The galaxy needed to understand what humans were capable of, for better and worse. Captain Yuna was supervising repairs on the endless horizon. Taiyang worked beside her, replacing damaged systems. They had both been offered commissions in the Terran Defense Fleet, but neither had decided yet. What do you think? Yuna asked. Should we join up? Taeyang considered the question carefully. We saved a lot of people. It felt good, being able to help. But it also meant killing, Yuna said quietly. A lot of killing. They didn't give us a choice, Taeyang pointed out. It was them or the innocents. I'd make the same decision again. Yuna nodded. Me too, but that doesn't make it easy. Pilot Doyen was training his squadron for the upcoming liberation campaign. His pilots were eager, but he made sure they understood the stakes. We're not just fighting, he told them. We're showing the galaxy what humanity can do. Every action we take will be watched and judged. We need to be precise, professional, and overwhelming. One of his pilots asked, Sir, do you think the other species will ever stop being afraid of us? Probably not, Doyun admitted. But maybe that's okay. Fear can be a tool for peace. If potential enemies know what we're capable of, maybe they'll think twice before attacking the innocent. The Galactic Council was debating humanity's proposal for a mutual defense pact. It was controversial. Many species didn't want to admit they needed military protection. Others worried about giving humans too much power. But Ambassador Hana was persuasive. She showed them the records from the 17 conquered systems. She displayed images of enslaved populations and stripped planets. She demonstrated what happened when peaceful species had no one to protect them. "We're not asking to rule you," Hana said. "We're offering to protect you. In exchange, we ask only for cooperation and integration. Let us be part of your communities. Let us contribute. And if danger comes, let us handle it." The vote was close, but it passed. The Terran Defense Coalition was born, a partnership between humanity and dozens of peaceful species. Humans would provide military protection. The other species would provide resources, technology, and cultural exchange. Major Hyun was briefing his Marines for the first liberation mission. They would be hitting a Dravik stronghold on a mining colony. Intelligence suggested thousands of enslaved aliens working in terrible conditions. "Rules of engagement are simple," Hyun told them. "Protect the civilians at all costs, eliminate Dravik's forces, and show them why you don't mess with Earth." Nari would be going with them as chief medical officer. She had treated hundreds of wounds in the past weeks, and she was ready for more. The suffering had to end. Back on Valanis 9, a small ceremony was being held. Velthar stood before the assembled crowd, aliens of dozens of species, all survivors of the Dravik's attack. "Today, we dedicate this memorial to all those who fought to protect us," Velthar announced. His voice was stronger now, more certain. "We came from peaceful worlds. We had forgotten that danger exists in the galaxy, but others had not forgotten, and when we called for help, they answered." A monument was unveiled. It showed a human figure standing protectively over smaller beings representing different species. The inscription read simply, "When darkness came, the Deathworlders answered." Admiral Minho attended the ceremony, standing quietly at the back. He watched as Velthar spoke about courage and sacrifice, about fear and hope, about learning that strength and compassion could coexist. After the ceremony, Velthar approached him. "Admiral, I have a request. When you leave to liberate the other systems, I would like Valanis 9 to host a permanent Terran garrison. We want human soldiers here. We want to feel safe." Minho was surprised. "You want us to stay, even after seeing what we can do?" "Because we saw what you can do," Velthar corrected. "You could have been conquerors yourselves. You have the strength, but instead you chose to be protectors. That is worth more than all the weapons in the galaxy." The request spread quickly. Other stations, other colonies, all asking for human protection. The Terran Defense Coalition grew larger with each passing day, but there was a shadow on the horizon. Dr. Sora had been analyzing the Dravik's data more carefully. She found something that chilled her to the bone: communications between the Draviks and something else, something bigger. She brought her findings to Admiral Minho privately. "Sir, the Draviks weren't acting alone. They were fleeing from something they called the Harvesters." Minho studied the data. "What are the Harvesters?" "I don't know," Sora admitted, "but the Draviks were terrified of them, and now the Harvesters know about us. They know about humans." Minho looked out at the stars, thinking about the future. "Then we'll deal with them when they come. We've shown the galaxy what Earth can do. If this new threat appears, we'll be ready." On Earth itself, news of the battle had spread. Humanity had officially announced itself to the galaxy as a military power. The reaction was mixed. Some celebrated. Others worried about the responsibility. But deep in the Terran Defense Fleet headquarters, plans were already being made. Training programs expanded. More ships were being built. More Marines were being recruited. Because now the galaxy knew the truth. When danger threatened the peaceful species, when predators attacked the innocent, there was someone who would answer the call. The Deathworlders of Earth had found their purpose among the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians, and they would fulfill that role no matter what came next. The story of Valanis 9 became legend. It was told in classrooms and council chambers across the galaxy. The day humanity showed the universe that predators could be protectors. the day the peaceful species learned they were not alone. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something ancient and hungry was taking notice. The harvesters were coming, but this time, the prey had teeth. This time, the prey had humanity.